It was awesome. It was like a great experience of like watching the Beatles and then like just like dumping ass in my chamber pot.
You use a chamber
And with
pot?
that, we're on to the show, guys.
We're live.
Welcome to a very special episode of the Lost Beat 6 Show Beaver Book Club. And this week,
I always make fun of us like progressively, like infinitely approaching becoming like that metal show. But this is going to be a very that metal show episode.
I can dig that. I can dig that. Yeah,
it's going to be that Beatles show.
Which one is the Eddie Trunk of the group?
I got to turn off.
Probably that's like the main dude, right? That's got to be Steve then.
He's sort of I don't know. I think Kyle and I are pretty close as far as the trivia is concerned.
You know, we just started talking about that metal show and Ryan just fucking left.
Fuck that metal show.
Yeah, Ryan hates that metal show because it doesn't have enough Sonic the Hedgehog in it.
It doesn't have enough Sonic the Hedgehog. It really just needs more like rolling around at the speed of sound.
But we are here to talk about this is about 2 weeks into the release, so I think everybody's done their commentating, breakdown, YouTube nonsense for about last week, and now we get to do ours because we finally got around to seeing it, everybody.
So like I've actually never heard this band before. Apparently Yoko Ono's husband used to be the drummer for this band in the 60s that were pretty big. I had no idea.
They were called the Boney Rolls.
You can say that we're about to
the Bottles.
Get back into it.
I want you guys to know I've been sitting on that joke all day.
Oh man.
No, I got a whole type 5 prepared, so I've been thinking about it.
So, do we want to just run through everything? Hit
us with the roster, Mr. Organizer, man. What are your thoughts?
Well, I want to see what everybody else thinks. I have a theory based on I shouldn't say a theory, but it's more of like a situation of depends on how much you like or dislike Paul McCartney in this video or in this film, kind of dictates what your opinion of the movie is. And I think like if there's like because I've noticed in the reaction to everything, there's a pro Paul McCartney camp and a anti Paul McCartney camp. And
I think I'm going to be in the anti Paul McCartney camp, but I think that if they literally didn't have a Paul McCartney trying to focus everybody, like I don't think they would have been able to make that fucking. They wouldn't have been able to make those albums because like everyone else is just like such like a fuck around, you know?
Yeah, the situation I've settled on is he's not wrong about a lot of what he's trying to do, but I don't think he's like he's been a lot of the decisions he made in the breakup were the right ones. Like,
yeah,
I
don't like the whole album on like the South Park production schedule. Like they're just like, fuck it, like we're writing an album this week, and then maybe next weekend we'll do a fucking concert in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's the whole
like,
thing. Yeah,
fuck?
We'll get to that too. But it's like there's like Paul was right about Alan Klein, and he was I agree with him to not have Phil Spector fuck up the tracks. John really liked it, and he goes on he's been on the record, you know, in the 70s saying, if you listen to those real tracks, you know how shitty they were, and you'd realize that Phil Spector did a wonderful job fixing it and everything. And I'm just like, no. And so he ends up being right, but he ends up being his character to kind of dominate everything rubs everybody the wrong way. And I think like the Beatles probably could have like used a break, you know, just do your thing. It'll keep Apple together or keep Apple focused. It'll keep, like I don't, like they were probably just like the monster that created the Beatlemania monster that kept them this strange like pop unit, ended up like destroying whatever they could do in the future.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll keep going on that. But Kyle, what was your thoughts?
Overall, I thought it was excellent. I'm not sure how much it would appeal to a non-Beatles fan, but if you are a Beatles fan, like this is an absolutely must watch. I mean, like,
I think if you've ever been in a band, I think it's like a must watch. Like it's extremely relatable.
Yeah, anyone who's been in a band or like involved in any sort of creative process, like even like throughout all the fighting particularly in the first episode, like they show like a lot of like the stuff with that it's that just them like goofing around. Like a lot of that like kind of exemplifies why the Beatles are like the cultural force that they are. Like when you look at like their dynamic, like even throughout all the fighting, like that's like why a lot of people start bands so they could have like what the Beatles had, where they could just like break out into like any like random song and just start playing together and like just spend like 8 hours a day like just making music. Like that's like it perfectly exemplifies like why, and like the quality of the footage is amazing. Like I had like
it is fucking crispy. It's nice.
Like, I've heard that story of George Harrison quitting the Beatles before. I had no idea I would ever see that in 4K. And and like the way it was edited together, like Peter Jackson, like I don't know if you guys seen this other documentary.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, they shall not grow old. Like very different feel, but like there's certain parallels with it. Like he's very like into, you can tell, like restoring like old like archival footage and like painting a story. Like it's not like, it sounds like it should be boring, like just a bunch of people like just rehearsing music that sounds like shit until it doesn't. But like the way he cuts it together, like the drama in every scene like is so compelling. Like again, I don't know how compelled you'd be if you weren't a Beatles fan, but if you are, like it's like it doesn't feel its length at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the tension is like really thick. Like you see a lot of just like, you know, every time like Paul like bitches out like George or whatever, and you just got, you know, then they go back to rehearsing, and you see these like close-ups of George, and he's just like fucking like, you can just tell it's on his mind. He's just like, I fucking hate this. It's like, oh fuck.
I like, really, but everything's so passive aggressive too. Where it's just like, I'm leaving. You are when now. Bye. I'll see you around the clubs. You're like, but it's like they've already gone through the heavy fighting through like their Hamburg days, where they might have gotten into like some sort of fist fight or threw food at each other. But you know, like I'm waiting that, you know, things like the flower pot mic is like a gold mine for anything you want, like for any sort of archivist sort of Beatles historian kind of like. It's one of those things where I find it equivalent to if you're like a history guy and you're studying the Cold War and you have the tapes that the Kennedys rigged in their war room when they're discussing the Cuban Missile Crisis and how calm everybody is and how chill everybody is, but everybody's, you know, it was like for like sort of history preservation or whatever. It ended up being super illegal, and obviously it got Nixon in the end. But it was this like, you want those little like, oh my gosh, like even when the Ken Burns uses the Vietnam War, like all those tapes that were recorded through the Johnson administration, you're like, oh my god, this is like, you really, this is like
the
footage
fucking
you really want.
It's a time machine.
Their sneaky ass hidden camera stuff is like absolutely bonkers. Well, hidden audio.
Yeah.
Like there's like I mean, I can't imagine there's anyone listening to this who hasn't seen it yet, but I mean, there's a part where they literally just like get audio of like Paul and John just like talking about like why George left, and it's just like it's like the most like raw shit. It's like, because for most of the documentary, it's like they're fucking around, and you know, when the cameras are on, they're kind of playing the part of the Beatles, you know, and then for a couple minutes they just have this like really real fucking raw conversation about like how Paul is just being like a huge dick, and it's incredible. Like it's absolutely bonkers, and they caught it like, just from just hiding a microphone in like a fucking flower pot.
You can tell it's like the culmination of years of this type of thing. Like all the arguments are like why are you always like this types of arguments that like only friends who've been like friends for that long can get into.
Ryan,
oh yeah, absolutely. It's like old married couple shit.
What you thought? What'd you think?
I liked it, but that's because I'm like a Beatles nerd, and I guess if you're a band person, I could see you appreciating it. I don't agree with Kyle necessarily that it didn't feel its length. I can only bear so many like 50s boogie woogie jams. Like I was like, all right, they gonna finish this? Like it kept
See,
getting.
that's where you and me differ. I can listen to them play that shit all day.
I kept getting this like this vision of Wyclef Jean coming in and being like, you can either make this song or you cannot make this song. Like every time, like I just wanted that to happen. But yeah, between
Too
that
close, man.
and the arguments, like, yeah, there's some, I guess, juicy stuff in there, but a lot of the time, like, they just come in mid conversation and you just have no fucking idea what they're talking about, and you kind of have to piece it together, which is kind of makes for an interesting watch. But it's like it's a little just kind of makes it feel like kind of easy to get lost in a little bit sometimes. But that's just kind of the nature of what they had to work with. Also, question: is this bit, because I've seen Let It Be? Is this just Let It Be the extended edition? Basically, is all of Let It Be contained in this thing?
I think there's a few clips that were in Let It Be that weren't in this, but I think this is a more complete picture of what happened. I think they've kind of floated like the idea, like, oh yeah, we're eventually gonna put out like a remastered version of Let It Be. But honestly, like I saw Let It Be like the day before this came out because I wanted to compare them, and it's cool, but like this is, I think, a much more compelling piece, a much more accurate document of that period in their history. I think Let It Be is kind of relegated to the for completions only section now. Like, although it's probably a more compelling watch if you're like, I don't want to watch an 8-hour fucking miniseries. Like if you just want to watch an hour 20-minute thing, I think Let It Be is probably good enough. But
this is a good documentary to put on while you're just like while you're doing something else, you know, because I feel like half the appeal is it's just like, damn, I'm literally listening to the Beatles jam out their songs until they turn into songs, you know. So it's like you're just like kind of leaving it on, and like in my case, while I was just dumping ass, and I've got like, you know, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my god, they're turned into Get Back, their shitty jam, that was crazy. But yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm with Kyle on this one. I could listen to them just like fuck around and noodle around all day, just because it's just an interesting document about like the songwriting process, you know.
It is, and it would have been really hard to do this with any other band, because filming like writing sessions is a really bold move, because writing sessions are fucking boring. Like, to the people involved are interesting, but watching it happen, like watching anything happen in a studio or like a rehearsal room or anything, it's fucking boring to watch from the third person. I'm like, so this is like, if it were any other band, I don't know if this would have worked. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like, forget that basically all of them were by this time basically actors and shit too, you know? Yeah. And like it's like not only are they really good musicians, but it's like they're just like really entertaining people too, which was always, you know, part of the appeal of the group, is that they're really funny and interesting. So that it's I mean, like if we were listening to Deep Purple fucking getting this shit out, I'm just like, I don't know, like who knows how entertaining that would be.
I mean, it goes back to like how I was saying, like this kind of exemplifies why people like the Beatles. Like I think that was part of what sold them to EMI. Like they were kind of okay on the songs, but like I think it wasn't until George Martin saw the four of them like interact with each other and like seeing them joking around, like they were just naturally really good at improv, like without any like training for that. They just had the natural inclination to yes and each other all day. And I think that was part of what made George Martin be like, okay, we can sell these guys like we're gonna sell these guys as like this is like a group that like people want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Also, can we talk about the masculine urge to sing your own song at half tempo in a stupid voice? Like that is, I want someone to cut together all of the whole album of Let It Be, but just like every time they do it in like a fucking weird accent, or like they just do it in a completely different style.
They're like gritting their teeth the whole time through like two of us.
Yeah.
What the fuck is The whole time I was watching it, I was just like, people aren't going to get this who listen to it if randos listen to it. But I was like, this reminds me of like the couple times I've seen like a Venom Millennium rehearsal, which is like our friend Kentucky's band.
No, yeah.
Band. I was like watching that. I was like, this reminds me of that.
Yeah, John Lennon definitely has Kentucky Clausen energy.
I think
giant temporary,
like riffing on the same joke or the same thing, like and now your host for this evening, the Bottles, and then the Boney Rolls, the Rolling Stones, you know, that whole thing. And the thing about that I like about it is what I like about it that I don't think anybody else understands, but maybe me and maybe Kyle, is that the context of when this is being made is fresh off a lot of other cool shit that just happened. Like the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus just happened December 11th, 1968. And so Lindsey Hogg, Glenn Johns, John Lennon, we're all sort of involved with that. I won't say John and Yoko were like, partially involved, but like the whole idea was they were into it. And I think, so they were fresh off working on that project. And then, Glenn Johns had just finished, Led Zeppelin 1 in late 1968.
Fuck.
So he's already he's already made one of his best records ever.
Crazy ass.
Before and it's just we just wanted, because he was the hot independent name. So that was, and he was still doing all the Let It Bleeds and Beggar's Banquet, a lot of the early Stone stuff, that late 60s Stone stuff was him. So that was really cool. Aftermath to Beggar's Banquet to Let It Bleed was all him. So he was pretty fresh in that kind of like just where he was in working on this project. That it seems like he didn't get a fair shake. I don't think he was in Let It Be. They edited him out of the whole situation, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't seen it. Is that correct?
I don't remember. If he was there, it was very briefly, and they didn't acknowledge that it was him.
Okay. And of course, they had the situation where they supposedly didn't like his mix. They gave it to,
which is fair. I've the new Let It Be box set has the original Get Back Glenn Johns mix, and it's an interesting historical piece. But I can see why they were this kind of sucks.
Was it better than the Phil Spector stuff? Do you think? I don't know. I can't stand. This is a funny thing for the Beatles Get Back. So this is my least favorite record.
No, yeah, I kind of agree. I've come to appreciate these songs more having seen this, but I mean, I've always been on Paul's side that the Phil Spector mix of particularly The Long and Winding Road is kind of not appropriate for that song. I definitely like the Let It Be Naked version better.
Yeah,
it's extreme. I used to really never like Long and Winding Road just for the super overwrought production. It's this could be any fucking shitty 70s ballad, with all the fucking strings and stuff.
I still don't like the song that much. And I think it's contextually, when I first heard it was in the my first Beatles record was 2002, the One singles. Here's the singles. Is what
same.
Babby's first compilation record. And the last song, and I didn't really understand the history of what was where, as far as Let It Be and Abbey Road swapping and stuff, because Get Back comes first in the singles. It's Get Back, Come Together, Something, Let It Be, Long and Winding Road. So for last time when I hear Long and Winding Road, I already knew they broke up in 1970. So this is their last song, and it sounds like a retrospective swan song, see you later kind of vibe, and it's very it feels, and I'm seeing in the context George had just died, so I'm just I'm getting this kind of context of these people are the band's already half there nowadays, and it's you don't get I never quite liked that song because it made me sad. It was depressing. So
this fucking album made me realize how many, even not covers based on the movie, but actually on the album, how many of it is just fucking 50s R&B. Get Back, fucking Get Back. One After 909 they brought back from the old days. That's kind of For You Blue, and just You can argue some of the other ones. The I Mean Mine breakdown has like a fucking 50s like R&B kind of feel to it. It's just like I was like, damn, they really were they were in a mood when they made. But
I mean, they were kind of always in that zone. Like they kind of never got out of that. I guess similar to how a band nowadays, if they were to make an album like that, it like between takes, they would probably be jamming on the Beatles.
Well, if they were going to do a whole writing and we're going to do everything live and everything in the studio, like we're going to not be dependent on the overdubs and the editing. You can't.
They were trying to get back to where they once belonged.
You can't pull off a revolver.
Oh my god!
It was like James Bond. They look right into the camera and he says, "We've got to get back to where we once belonged." The movie starts, the credits roll, and yeah, it's really cool. That's what happened. It's in the movie. Go watch it. For real.
So, you want to talk about George?
Yeah, George Harris. I actually had a funny thought about George. Is like he's like really like he talks about money really conveniently, which I found to be really funny.
Yeah, he was the realest dude. Like,
well, like kind of he knows what he knows. I believe that he knew what the money situation was, but he was like also very convenient about it, because when they pitched the cruise idea, which is like for many reasons a terrible idea, it's like, oh yeah, let's get like high profile people and let's put a bunch of like fanatics on board with them and trap them with these people and then do this whole thing. You watch the show and you'll see what happens. But like, and he's like, oh, that's a terrible idea. And also it's really expensive. And then like, whenever they suggest other stuff, he's like, we subsidize EMI and they pay for everything. So it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. Glyn Johns is like, you're charging you like, 50, what is it? Like 50 pence, like every 2 feet for like your tape or something. And he's like, oh, it's fine. EMI is paying for it.
Yeah. Or it's like, I thought it was Apple, like,
well, he said EMI. Before.
I'm pretty sure EMI is like has a distribution deal for Apple. So I'm sure it's like an imprint.
He said it in the movie, so I'm just going off of what he said.
I agree.
But he had like this whenever it's like inconvenient, he's like, nah, that's too expensive. And then like when he's like does want to do it, he's like, it's fine, just fucking put on the company card, man. It's great.
I mean, that's still more. The tape is more practical to a degree.
I think the deal there was that he knew EMI wouldn't foot the bill for any travel expenses for that.
It's like, how about this? Picture this. I'm trying to do it my Michael Lindsay Hogg voice. All right, guys, let's figure it out. I got a great idea. Hard day's night on a boat. Like. And I think it's a really great idea, guys. I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong to not want to do this.
Actually,
imagine playing a concert in front of 2,000 Arabs.
2,000 Arabs, torchlit desert, ocean in the background.
I'm a bigger Beatles fan than you, Linda.
I really like all of George's like weird Hare Krishna friends that just kept hanging around on set. Those people all look like they are fucking like starving to death and like extremely in like a bad mental state. Like I feel like this documentary makes the Hare Krishnas look very bad. Because every time they show up, they look absolutely zombified and fucking brain dead.
It's a great setup, though, for them to be self-referential about their own history. They're just like, "Who's that little old man back there? Don't know. Clean though." You're just like, sold. I'm in.
Like this guy's like fucking. They're like this. They're like, "Here's a little old man," and it's like this dude's like 25, but just looks completely fucking doinked on. Whatever beatings and malnutrition he's been enduring with the Hare Krishnas. But
it's also the 60s where people like didn't fucking like wear sunscreen or like they like ate fucking Jello and shit all the time. I mean, Hare Krishnas didn't eat Jello, but like you guys are saying, like people didn't care.
Yeah.
Like people didn't take care of themselves. These guys weren't moisturizing.
They're probably fasting for some like Hindu reason.
Oh yeah, they're probably just like fucking. They're just doing like weird like austerity cult stuff. And
what's great is that the second episode starts with Ringo showing up, and the guys bring the flowers in for George. Like
they're like for Mr. Harrison, and it's just like, and the whole band just goes,
and Ringo. I think it's just Ringo there, and he's just like, oh, this is from the Hare Krishna people.
Dude, it's like everyone. It's like because it's like they're sitting there and it's with I think it's like Linda and Paul and
John.
Ringo.
It was just the two of them. I don't think George had left.
Was
at that point.
There was a crowd there. Anyway,
yeah, there was a crowd of people, but like it's a great point for saying Ringo goes or like, Michael is like, did you like India? He's like, no.
Dude, the cool part was all the footage from their. I liked all the footage from their India trip. That was
really good.
I want to talk about that because, like, I think people have always like talked about like the fights with George and Paul, like especially like the I'll play whatever you want me to play. Like that's been like a whole meme for 50 years. But like I think that scene where they're talking about the trip to India is much more telling of the divisions within the band than any of the arguments they got into.
Yeah,
because like Paul and John are talking about it. They're like, oh yeah, we didn't do it. We felt like we weren't being honest with ourselves. And George just sitting there like, y'all, that was the whole point, was to like go there and find ourselves. Like, and he's not even mad. You can just tell he's like, man, I need new fucking friends. Like I can't fucking hang with these guys.
Yeah.
They're just.
Hits him. He gets pretty savage with them. He's just like, yeah, we found out like what he's like, we sure did find out what our real selves were like, huh, fellas? It's like, oh my god.
and John mentioned that.
What's the Indian version of a weeb? Like what,
yeah, like a
what's George? What is George right as?
Like a Vishnu boo instead of a weeaboo.
Instead of a weeaboo, yeah, he's like I was like, what?
That's like, dude, that was being into like Eastern spiritualism. That's like the weeaboo. That's like the boomer weeaboo shit.
Oh,
it's like they make fun of us for being weebs, but I'm like, they all went to fucking India to.
Oh yeah, they're all burning incense and patchouli in it and shit, and they're fucking like, looking into all this like Eastern religion, joining Hare Krishna, like handing out pamphlets in the airports and shit, and they're like, look at these nerdy kids fucking dressed up like anime characters. Like,
no, yeah, my dad's the same way. Like going to fucking like, like taking the trip to Varanasi and hanging out in the Ganges River and shit.
Nice.
Like my dad did the same fucking shit.
To be fair, the Hare Krishnas don't like Naruto run the way like weebs do.
I don't know, man. Did you see the fucking guys in the documentary? They were pretty fucking autistic.
I will also say the Beatles are just at the end of the silent generation too. So
I'm pretty sure if you read any of the, I'm pretty sure if you read the Bhagavad Gita, someone probably Naruto runs. Like, I will bet you Krishna probably takes off fucking Naruto running at some point.
Isn't that when like Shiva stops Naruto running, then the universe gets destroyed? Isn't that how the
yeah. Krishna's like, yeah, just go ahead and kill your fucking family. I mean, it's basically just the Itachi clan, right? Or he's just like, yeah, it's fine, Arjuna, just kill everyone you're related to. It's fine. It's fucking Naruto each other
ever.
Yeah, I to bring it back, I think to get back.
It's like the Pee Wee Herman. Every time we say
the word,
every time we say get back to it, we're gonna fucking scream.
Great, it's like James Bond. They say it in every movie. He looks in this camera, he says his name.
My name is Get Back. My name is John. Get Back, man.
Get Back.
My name is Back. Get Back. Anyway, but I think like I've seen a lot of people. I've seen some people say that George is super super whiny in this thing. I don't know. There's a level of him
justifiably whiny.
He's justifiably whiny. I mean, like he's kind of the honesty broker. There's like the way I look at this is like Paul's like trying to hold on to like. He doesn't have any plans other than being everybody else has other plans beyond being a Beatle, except for Paul. And so, like, there's a level of like, we gotta hold on. We need a strict schedule. We need a strict every day. You gotta work hard. And that's fine. But you really like, except you're dealing with like, and he would admit that he's extremely undisciplined. Like they just like most of the time they are spent like sort of just jerking off about like playing other tunes. Like we need to work on this, and then they spend like 3 hours jamming on something else. But sometimes they're waiting for, it's a very band thing to do, where like you're waiting for people to show up, and so you're jamming with who you have and stuff.
Yeah, just fucking around.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Paul would be like, we need structure or whatever, and then he'd be like doing the bullshit, like he's trying to like play up how, George and Ringo are the one. Ringo is probably the most like he did everything, just like he did his job. He showed up and did his job. He showed up and played the drums, even over their bullshit, their 50s, whatever, jams and everything. And Paul's like, we need to figure this shit out and get on task. And he would just start, and the next scene, he'd be like doing his, like singing his songs through his clenched teeth and in funny accent.
Yeah.
I would like to point out about Paul McCartney and like how this is such a like fucking like of its time movie that like took me completely out of the present tense and was like kind of immersive.
Is it all a toast?
Just like how fucking much of a liability insurance nightmare Paul McCartney is. I texted Kyle about it earlier, but like we pre-gamed a little bit. But so I wrote.
We pre-gamed a little.
I wrote down the things that he was doing that I was like, holy shit! Like this is fucking, like this is you could not do this on a film set now. And I was like, he used the scaffolding as like monkey bars. He like wrapped a chain around himself. It was like attached to a pulley and was like having Ringo like hoist him into the air.
Fucking madman.
Jumped over like this piece of shit chair. Like at one point.
It's all of his parkour antics. It's fucking insane.
He like there's like two different instances in part 2 and part 3 where he like jumps on the roof to test if it's gonna like cave in. It's like, dude,
and like you can see like the floorboards like shifting around because they're that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like this guy needs to stop. Like somebody needs to like. But it's funny because with all the fucking around and all that, like no one really stops them. And I'm like, why? One guy, Glyn Johns, kind of intervenes a little bit. George Martin at the end kind of does, but for most of the time, they're like, oh, whatever, let them do their thing. Because like, at first you think like, oh, who's going to stop the biggest band in the world? But on the other hand, it's like, they're all getting paid by the hour. Of course, they're not going to fucking stop them. They're going to let them jam on 50 songs for 9 hours. So with
the exception that Glenn actually had to be in LA for another session because he was at this point he was commuting between Los Angeles and
he was
London.
ridiculously busy. Yeah,
there's a lot of like Metalocalypse shenanigans happening in the show. Like it's the whole intro is like the whole like intro to the first episode that kind of recaps like the whole history of the Beatles is like basically just the first episode of Metalocalypse.
It covers them. It basically, if anybody hadn't seen the anthology, that's essentially the anthology in a nutshell, without the interviews, which are really good. This is sort of one of those like if you liked this, you'd like the. And if anybody hadn't seen the anthology, the problem is, and this might change with this situation to Get Back, is that the anthology is actually hard to find. It's like I think you have to torrent it now to get it digitally, like just digitally stream it, because essentially, like,
you mean borrow it from the internet?
Sure.
Yeah, borrow it from like 100 other.
You gotta fucking steal it, man.
Chunks.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because
you make a digitally backup of the DVD that you already bought legitimately. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Get borrow.
Get borrow. Get blood. Get blood.
Bit borrow, or you borrow things on the internet for free.
Get documentary.
Yeah. Getting piracy is justified.
Yeah, but Glyn Johns is like really busy at this point, and he's like doing a shit ton of records, like all right around each other. I mean, I thought he was expert. Also, I just want to say he was expertly played by Cillian Murphy in this movie. But yeah, I was like, how the fuck is he having time for all this shit? Like,
yeah, him and Eric Wareheim as Mal Evans.
Mal Evans.
Yeah.
You know, I guess before the internet and smartphones, you were able to just fill your time with other shit. Fucking...
Yeah, I said, like, Gabby and I was like watching it together and looking at each other every time. We're like, damn, like pre-internet, like you just had to fucking make your own fun. Like you couldn't just like inject fucking raw entertainment like into your eyeballs every second of every day. You just had to like, this is it. You had money and didn't have to work a miserable job. You just got to like, play 50s bangers all day.
Real quick, I wanna speak out in defense of Paul, like dicking around with them. Like I think like a lot of them jamming on 50s tunes was like part of like the whole like meme with that album was like they were trying to like get back to their roots. And I think they were like jamming in those songs with the anticipation they might use some of those covers on the album.
Possible. Or even the show, you need more. I think the rock shows at that point were no longer 20-minute buzz throughs through trial. What do you call it? What are those trial? Is it trial runs? I'm using that right gamer word where they're trying to get speed runs. They weren't like 20-minute speed runs.
The gamer word.
Because he's like every show, every Beatles show is like the opening act, and then like probably played for an hour, maybe 30 minutes. The Beatles go up, play for 20 minutes, get the fuck off the stage, go to the next.
Music used to be so fucking different, man. It's so weird. Like we take it all for granted now, but it's like their advent is just like such an alien landscape. It's so fucking bizarre.
I'm glad like Glyn Johns kind of talks about the tape at the end, because I was like the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like fucking 60, this is parsed from 60 hours of footage. I was like, that's so much film. Where did they put that?
Yeah.
Where was this? What vault was this? Where's so much tape?
Well, they had that additional recordist too.
Right. And when he goes, but when he goes like at one point, it's like, I think it's part 3 where he goes, hey, can you set up another mic for us? Like when they're in Apple Studios, can you set up another mic? I'm like, that was so complicated back then, because like they had 8 tracks. You can't just like randomly add in shit. You couldn't just make a new track in Pro Tools. You had to like move shit around.
Well, no, I mean the way that would work, I guess, is
just go plug in a million different patch cables and shit.
Well, it would also have to go into 8 tracks, but the console would bust those in, so you had more channels on a console than you had in tracks.
Sure, no, I understand that it wasn't like impossible, but I was just like, God, it was just a schlep. It's just like, God, it's not like Pro Tools, think, move things around. Okay, you're in.
I was thinking about the PA system, and they kept feeding back, and you could hear the ringing of the PA system,
like electrocuting people and just like shit, and just didn't work.
And I'm thinking like, if we had today's technology,
back to them. When George Martin's like, here's how feedback works. And John's like, can we hang the fucking speakers from the ceiling, like in the corners? And he's like, that's not how feedback works. It's going into the microphone speaker and creating a loop. It's like,
I love stories of John just like asking questions like that, like out of his own ignorance. Like, I'm gonna put on my nerd hat for a second. Like, there's this story, like I think on the single version of Revolution, like the way they got John Lennon's guitar tone was by plugging straight into the console and just
that's a preamp,
just playing it loud.
Yeah,
and John liked the effect, so he was like, "Hey, can you do that to my voice?" George Martin was like, "Well, unless you have a guitar input jack in your throat, no, I can't."
There's also the story of like the flange story. But it's like, hey, put like an act. I think somebody like accidentally put their finger against the tape and it like made a flange effect on it. And John was like, that sounds cool. And like I guess he just like made the fucking word up, or like had a weird episode or something, like memory wise. And later he wanted it. He was like, hey, George, can you put that flange thing on the song? And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I want to sound like the Dalai Lama shouting from the mountain. This is the Tomorrow Never Knows story, I think.
Tomorrow Never Knows. He's like, what is flange? He's like,
oh my God.
Well, it's interesting because I think they were inventing the ADT machine at the time. But I think the initial idea for him to get what became putting his mic, running it through a Leslie speaker, was to have him have a U-47 in the center and then have John swinging around the studio on a harness. I think that was the initial idea. I think that's what he wanted to do. And so when they obviously didn't do that, they go, how about we just put a rotating speaker on a mic and do that instead? And of course, you see like Leslie's all over the mat on the show. Because
George likes his Telecaster through a Leslie sound.
They did that with Cream, did that as well when George and Eric.
I want to shout out just how good all of their fucking guitar tones sound. Like just every time they're just like they're so fucking crunchy and just fucking like sounds all of that shit just sounds so fucking good.
Imagine how loud that is. Those were all twins.
I was thinking about it. I was like, how are these guys not fucking deaf? Like,
it's like just these 10-hour days in the studio, just fucking.
They probably are.
Yeah, they're probably deaf as fuck. Yeah,
the ones that are alive.
The thing that just to expand on Sean's point of like how different music was. Like, I remember Gabby at one point goes like, "Look at this fucking like foam bullshit, like these pieces of shit foam they have over their mics." I was like, "Damn, they just didn't have like custom foam for these like weird newly invented mics and shit they had back."
Those little Neumann
like,
dudes.
Yeah, and when you're talking about like no people are getting like shocked by the mics and stuff, I was like, I'm just looking at this like when they're on the it was like when they're in Apple Studios and like kept adding shit like Billy and guitars and stuff, and like mics, and when they're on the rooftop, I was like with all the film equipment and everything, I was just like, look at all this ungrounded electricity in the 1960s. Like Jesus Christ, like oh my god.
It's like someone could have just fucking died.
And also like a graphic EQ, which I don't know if they were invented yet. They were pretty close, but if someone just had a couple of those, you would have fixed your PA problem very quickly.
Yeah, like years later, the guy from Renaissance died, like plugging in his amp for like,
I was just gonna fucking bring this up. Yeah, like some dude, the guy from Renaissance killed himself that way.
At home. And I was like, oh my god, all this fucking ungrounded electricity, like just electronic like equipment, just all sucking like this piece of shit, like 1800s Victorian building. There's no way it's retrofitted to like support.
Yeah.
Sucked out of it. Like there's no fucking way. Like the wires are melting inside that building.
I'm also gonna critique one thing. I wanted more Magic Alex.
He's an interesting guy.
Because they had that whole setup about what he was promising. At least they showed him the wonky plastic foam bass.
Was like the thing with the rotating fucking like the bass and guitar thing with the rotating neck.
Was that just a concept, or was that supposed to be the final product?
I think that was a prototype. I think.
All right.
The funny thing is,
it looks like a fucking pool noodle.
What's so strange is
that was a prototype for the Chapman stick.
And maybe you can help me out on this, because I can't tell if they were just like appeasing him, because John seems to be like really gullible a lot of the times, where he's just like, yeah, Alan Klein, such a great guy, like he's fantastic, and then Glenn's like, nah, bro.
It's funny because I kind of talked about that with Gabby. We're like, oh, start our own business, Apple Studios, whatever, like, and how like easy and shit it was to start a business back then, and it's just like, oh yeah, like these guys with like a fucking middle school education.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're talented and worked really hard, and like obviously, but it's like these guys like dropped out at like 15 years old, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna fucking start a business.
Well, like, you can tell when it comes to Apple Electronics, and that was Alexi Martis' like department, and they're just like, yeah, go for it, dude. And John was just like, yeah, you're amazing. And then you're like, oh, you're also a fraud, but hey, George seems to kind of know he's like a fraud, but keeps wanting to give him money anyway, like a joke. Because you can't hear him like,
George had like,
we should just pay him more money. Yeah, I think it was like a sick joke to him where he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna fund you to keep looking and making yourself look like an idiot, you know.
I mean, at that point, it's like he already knows. He's like, yeah, this band is fucking done. He's like, I'm here to finish this album, and then like I'm fucking done. So he's like, fuck it, yeah, pay him to make my pool noodle guitar.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get a few laughs on the way out, I guess. But,
yeah, because he was like, yeah, I don't mind burning that money, you know.
But yeah, speaking of technology and smartphones, the best equivalent they had of a fucking smartphone was Mal Evans, because that guy just like hey, go get this, or like find us this information. He would just like do it. Like, imagine going around London like looking for an anvil in 1969. Like they should have sent the camera after him and like had a whole sequence of him doing that.
I mean, 1969, you could probably just like walk around on the beach and just like find just like random, just heavy shards of metal just everywhere.
Probably, actually, but
I found this dud mine, this German bomb that just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I hear now that
you just go pick up shrapnel from the streets and just fucking bring it home with you.
Yeah,
I hear now that this documentary is generating interest in Mal Evans. I think I heard somewhere that they're going to start releasing like his journal entries and stuff, or I forget what it was, but like more supplemental material about Mal Evans, because he's been like, I've heard his name before, like he's like a figure in the Beatles like expanded universe, you know, but
the hovering circle. If you look at the anthology, thing, you have your Derek Taylor, your press agent, who I think had a falling out with Brian Epstein. So once Brian died, he came back in the mix. You have your Neil Aspinalls, who was like the main road manager kind of cat. Yeah. And they were like, he was roadie number 1 and Mal was roadie number 2. But Neil ended up taking over Apple, or running Apple. So that was more of a situation of him. He was always kind of in a public figure as that guy. And then you get George Martin, obviously, and Brian Epstein, but like you get Mal was shot by cops. Was that right?
Yeah, he the story with him was I forget what his deal was. I think he was on drugs or something, but like I think his friends came over to check on him, and he had like a BB gun or something, and he was like threatening them with it, and like I forget whether it was his friends who called the cops or his neighbors just saw him with a gun or something, but like the cops showed up, they saw him with his BB gun, and they thought it was a real gun, so they just shot him.
Jesus,
I find
shot
them
him to cover up the government killing John Lennon. Or killing Paul.
Well, Mal died before. Mal was the first to go. Mal was the first to go.
Actually, speaking of Mal Evans and the police, like he did a really great job of stalling the police.
Yes.
Were the police back
They
then?
shot him for it.
Was it a 60s thing or was it?
Sorry,
everyone knows the tragic end of this documentary, which is like Mal gets shot by the police, and then the building caves in and kills everyone except for John.
Sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
Were the police like? Is it like a time period thing, or was it like a cultural like difference England thing, or did they just get particularly gullible cops? Like, what was with these cops who just like stood there like for a half hour? Like,
yeah, dude, cops.
I think it's an English thing.
Cops before like 1990, like didn't do shit, dude. Like there's like you basically just like this is like a pre like this is like pre. Nowadays the cops just assume that everyone is like a maniac gun wielder and just approach every situation just assuming that every person on the scene is like a maniac with a weapon, and then I mean this that's like a running thing throughout this whole like documentary. Like you remember like just like the Paul stalkers just like hanging outside the fucking studio every
Apple
day.
Scruffs.
Yeah, that was an ongoing thing. Like I hear there's
see them like every day, just like hanging out, waiting for Paul. Then it's just like, yeah, the cops just don't give a fuck. It's a different time, man. It's so fucking crazy.
Yeah, I will also say I think the police
now the fucking cops would be like rappelling from helicopters onto the fucking roof.
Yeah, they'd be tear gassing the building and stuff.
To be fair, in England they don't have guns, so
yeah,
I think in any
the
situation
culture,
like that, like English police are going to be like, what are they going to do? Shoot someone?
Yeah, it's far less. And of course, I think the whole British like.
Also, they knew it was the Beatles. Like that was part of it too. Like I think the cops were like, okay, it's the Beatles. Like they're not. Like it's not like a bunch of kids, like it's the Beatles. I think they were a bit more lenient than they would have. And
that's that kind of like strange, like passive aggressive vibe that I think it's a very British thing where they're not going to tell you, they're not going to be like, listen here, buddy, you have us up this room, like they're not going to jam the door, and like it's not like a American TV show. It's very much like a
you got a license for that.
Yeah. So he was being kind of direct and stuff where it's like, well, see, you all being a problem, you all like whatever, but it's like it's not really like. Dude was probably just like, I don't know. It's hard to say because I think that it's more of a, I just think that style of policing of that time and of that country is far different from anything in America, where I mean, a year before that, like it was only like 4 or 5 months previous that the Mayor Daley, just kicked the shit out of everybody in Chicago. So, like it's just a different vibe.
You can tell it was shot in England because the cops didn't shoot Billy Preston the second they saw him.
Crazy. I was like, man, I hope Billy doesn't turn around and see, because everybody was like noticing them one by one, like Paul first, like a band, Paul first, and or maybe George because he was like turned around.
He turned his amp off.
Ringo sees him, and John's singing, so he sees him last. And then you see Billy Preston fucking looks. I was like, oh man, poor guy. Like he's gonna fucking see. Like it's like, yeah, man. But yeah, it was different. I was just like, wow, this is weird to watch these cops like playing ball with the fucking secretary and they're like, go for it.
My favorite part of that sequence was when like one of the cops was like, if you're shooting a movie, can't you just like shoot the footage and then dub it later? And she was like, no, like they have to do it live. And the cop just has this look on his face like, okay.
Don't you record studio?
Okay, buddy.
Don't you record in the studio? I thought those were all indoors. Like, it's a thing.
Isn't it soundproofed like in the studio? And you go, oh yeah, they're not in the studio. They're on the roof. It was just, oh god. That was another, like, I didn't realize because of course I've seen the rooftop concert. and they're like filming it and recording it, and I'm just like, shit, they had to put them in the basement where they were recording it, and they could just like talk to it. I guess like the whole closed circuit camera, like they had primitive Zoom going on, which was kind of interesting.
I think, yeah, they had a talk back. Glenn had a talk back going up to them.
He did. And I wonder who had the idea, like they had to go around and knock on other people's doors and be like, can we film on your roof? Like, we need one.
No, they didn't.
I don't think they did. That was actually far more illegal than what the Beatles were doing.
Yeah, remember there was that guy that came in and is like, hey, you have people on my roof that's trespassing. You got to get them off.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what that guy was on about. I was like, who is this guy? Okay, he was about that. And they were trying to fucking bamboozle him. They were like, oh no, we're not across the street. We're filming on top of our roof.
Yeah. But some of those cooler shots are the ones that are across the street. You wanted, I'm glad they got them because those are the bigger. You want the scale of the city.
I'm glad they kept them.
Like, they're like, what are they gonna do? Fucking, it's like, what are the police gonna do? Break up the Beatles?
I always.
I kind of like the idea of just like taking your band and then just going out on like the most like illegal, destructive note, because it's like, the band's fucking over. It's like, what are they gonna do? Cancel us? Oh no!
Well, what's funny is I like what I was reading the anthology, and I was reading of the era, and George has a phrase, and he says, "Yeah, it was a good show. Yeah, the Ruddles did a good version of it too." There's a great part where he keeps referencing the Ruddles at the end of the book, where it's like, "Yeah, I remember that scene with Ron Decline. That's completely accurate." Way
to plug your own movie.
Yeah, but it was Eric Idle. But what I like about that one is
didn't he pay for it?
He paid for Life of Brian.
Oh,
but
I knew that. I thought he paid for the Ruddles too.
No, that was a collaboration with NBC, like Saturday Night Live and Rutland, whatever, BBC. But anyway, there's a point where they talk about. I think Eric always makes a joke. The Ruddles were so bad they were arrested. Which I like that. That was the fantasy fulfillment of what they all wanted. Like Ringo goes, "Yeah, I really wish they just dragged me off. I wanted to be like." Oh.
So they should have gone with John's original idea and just set up in
they should have done it in Chicago,
the Parliament, and then just fucking just gotten their fucking asses beat.
Yeah, they should have. They picked the wrong place.
Set up across the street from Enoch Powell's house.
They should have played it in Chicago.
There's Kyle brings up an interesting point because I had a thought. You remind me of something that we talked about also, Kyle, about like Enoch Powell. It's like, I found this
Eric Clapton's favorite politician.
Yeah, Eric Clapton's favorite politician who he publicly endorsed because Eric Clapton is a racist. The thing is, like,
look up that footage, everybody. If you haven't seen like the fucking like Eric Clapton blackout drunk, like screaming about minorities on stage, like go look up that like now.
It's fucking real, yeah. And so like the fucking just like the Beatles like ham-fistedly writing the most like racist anti-racism song ever.
Oh my god.
It's like the thing is, like, that they're anti-race, but if you watch that scene and they
completely out of context, it looks like the memes where they're like, it's okay to leave a dog in a hot car. It just looks like that, like unironically.
Jackson lays it on thick. There's excerpts from newspapers.
Yeah, because I'd be confused if you heard that song.
There's text overlays. There's fucking there's footage of like protests and counter protests and stuff.
They have to be like, they're fucking kidding. Like they're not. This is for the post information world that we live in now.
Yeah. So if you saw that out of context, you'd be like, are they pro, anti? I don't know. So like the thing you have to consider is like, okay, when you're trying to do, because I have a philosophical point here, but when you're trying to make something that's like, I'm making fun of these type of people, you either have to like make it really goofy and over the top and make them look silly, which they do with the performance kind of, but it's not really clear, but you can but mostly you want to do it with the writing, or you have to like include consequences for the narrator who is like an unreliable narrator or a villainous narrator. The narrator's the villain. You have to include consequences at the end.
Yeah.
This is fucking like racism. Yeah, wouldn't it be like Kyle put it? Like, wouldn't it be wild? Like, wouldn't it be weird if someone made a song like this? Like 60s edgelordism.
Well, you know what I think? You know what I think? I think that this was just like we live in like in a time of like a huge like right wing resurgence. I think at the time, like them, it just like those statements just by themselves, I think, were like easily identifiable as like ludicrous and like, oh yeah, of course. Nobody would be saying this seriously. That's fucking stupid.
We're also
like,
kind of
we're
also post satire too, because every like
like I think at the time it's like you wouldn't have had to.
Let's not get it
so
mixed up.
Self-evident.
Let's not get it mixed up. This was an unfinished song. I think they knew everything Ryan just said, and that's why they decided to make it a simpler song.
Sure. It is, but that's true. But you know that it's just funny that like in today's context, like that Peter Jackson's just like, look.
It's like,
it's a good thing they put that little blurb up. Like, hey,
like this is
it's all right.
Eric Clapton, like hearing this like demo and not knowing the context, being like, "This is all right." Like, yeah, guys. Like, yeah, guys, love it.
This is my favorite Beatles song.
On the album.
I will say, everybody, like, I will say, a lot of people, I'm not saying, like, I'm trying not to completely defend Eric Clapton. He's not a racist. It's just like I find it, one, far more complicated than just saying racist, and two, it is actually sort of like this has been like an earworm or a little bit of a, what do they call that, where they sink in your brain? It's the brain. The idea is now seated in my brain, and I'm kind of resenting the entire situation that I can't just like Eric Clapton anymore. So like, because
no, you can like him, just torn his music. Like you're allowed to like any like problematic.
Like I said, I was watching the George Harrison documentary, and he's in the George Harrison documentary. I'm like, nice, you know, I'm looking at the books behind his shelves, and they all look pretty. It looks pretty well cultured. So I don't know if like he specifically did that. You know,
he's got like Mein Kampf and like the novelized version of like Triumph der Wilken in the background. He's like,
awful lot of like Nordic mythology reference books.
One last thing on Eric Clapton, then I think we should get back to where we once belonged. Has Eric Clapton like said anything recently that's like kind of sort of very racist, or is it just that one Enoch Powell rant in the 70s?
No, there's like a fucking entire, like somebody made an entire account of it. I'm trying to find it right now. I'll like post it later, but like
that'll be the next podcast maybe.
Yeah, somebody like fucking did an entire like overview of over the years like Eric Clapton's like racist transgressions.
Yeah.
Oh, he's like a vaxxer. That's what he's up to.
He's in
Wait. You didn't hear the song he did with Van Morrison as like the stop the fucking quarantine song?
I've heard of it. I never bothered to
he's been
listen to it.
Oh, you sweet innocent boy.
That's also another issue where he's been very kind of like, just, you know.
He's always been a weird right wing. Oh fuck! There's like an entire there's like 3 songs of him with Van Morrison, like stop the mask and stop the vaccine.
They put out an entire anti-vax EP. Holy shit!
I'm gonna just leave this in here for you to listen to later, Sean. Like I'm just gonna put these links.
Oh yeah.
And you're just gonna go.
I'm into it.
Stuff from the fucking mental gasoline that is these fucking collabs with Van Morrison, and Van Morrison hurt because Steve. Like, I mean, I know how it feels. Is like I fucking listen to like Sweet Thing and like Astral Weeks. I'm like, man, I love these albums, and I like found out about that. And I'm like, now I feel fucking weird for liking this shit. And that's a different podcast though.
We might have to have it just like off air. We can discuss like saying racist things and actually being racist and the kind of combination
just
of
like the spectrum of racism.
The spectrum of it. Because honestly, I'm not.
Just for you. But there's like if you go to Snopes and look into like Eric Clapton's racist history, like you see where he's like he's still being racist and where he's been like sorry about it or like apologized, and then when he like did shit later that made it seem like he didn't mean it, and it just goes on and on. It's like you can just go to Snopes and be like, is Eric Clapton racist?
There's also a point of Eric Clapton where I stopped caring about his career. So
they should make racist Mythbusters. They should just get Adam and Jamie to just investigate if people are racist, and then if they are, they just like, I don't know, they just like build like a battle bot to like throw pies at them or something.
But that was a fucking tangent. How about them Beatles?
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
So-
Yeah. Speaking of the Beatles,
I have another topic. So I want to talk about Michael Lindsay Hogg and as I call him, the
Orson Welles'
Thunder.
illegitimate son.
Kyle has the best fucking like pseudo, almost like fanfic of Michael Lindsay Hogg that I've ever heard, and I like shit my pants laughing when he texted me about
Well,
it.
before we go into that really quickly, did anybody find him like extremely obnoxious?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Michael Lindsay Hogg broke up the Beatles by sitting on an amp, not Yoko. Not really, but yeah.
I've alleviated on a little bit after seeing it a few times, but go ahead, Ryan.
No, it's the thing about Michael Lindsay Hogg. I initially was like, okay, this guy, he was a lot more from people, what I saw people like posting about and what people I talked to people about. He wasn't as bad as I thought he was going to be. He just seemed kind of like a little selfish, especially in the beginning. He was worse in part one. It kind of cooled off from there, in my opinion.
He was like a stereotypical, like pretentious filmmaker. Like, I gotta get the best shots, like that kind of guy.
Yeah, he's a relatively young director. He wants to make his name in Hollywood or the film industry or London Wood or wherever the fuck it is in England.
He wants to reconnect with Orson Welles.
He's like the first music video director ever.
Yeah, we kind of started MTV, but he was like, clearly he's trying to like, I'm not trying to justify everything because he's kind of obnoxious and like pushing ideas. It seemed like he just cared more about making his movie make him look good than making the Beatles movie make them look good and the Beatles album look good. It seemed like he was, I want to make my mark in the film industry and I want to like, I want to like look really good is what I got the vibe off of him. But then Kyle told me about his fucking past and I was like, I kind of feel bad for this guy now. I understand what his like ego problems are now. So ish.
Go on.
Kyle, give us your best fanfic of Michael Lindsay Hogg.
Tell us all about it, Kyle.
Which is
what was my fanfic again? Sorry, I think you looked up his history more recently than I did, so you might be better off.
All right, well,
this.
The non-fanfic part is that like, okay, so Kyle was like, he's like the illegitimate son of Orson Welles, right? And I was like, is he? Holy shit, he kind of looks like him when he was young. It makes a lot of sense. And you look at like he's got like the transatlantic accent and everything, whatever. But you go and you look at his like fucking history, and apparently he was like confused about it for his like entire childhood and like he knew Orson Welles growing up, and he was like confused about it his entire young life. And then when he's like 16, he finally confronted his mom, and he goes, "Mom, like, give me the straight shit. Is Orson Welles my dad?" And according to Wikipedia and whatever their source is, apparently she gave him a response that was so confusing that it just made his dad complex like worse, and it just made like flung him into a further spiral of despair and like an unsurety about his like patronage. So he's like a very confused guy. I don't know if he's still dealing with it at this point, like at 28 years old in the movie, but I was like, this guy's clearly all right, this guy's got some problems, and I kind of feel bad a little bit. And, I mean, yeah, you got to take ownership of your actions at some point and be an adult and like take responsibility. But I kind of
like, well, Orson Welles was one of the 18 men who ran a train off that night.
It's weird to think about people running trains and like in the 1900s.
I want to see I want to see the Mamma Mia style, like Beatles jukebox musical about Michael Lindsay Hogg trying to find out who his real dad is.
Well, Kyle, this is where Kyle's fanfic comes in. Kyle,
oh, okay, yeah.
What was the motive, the impetus for Michael Lindsay Hogg making the suggestion made in this movie?
I completely forgot the whatever joke thing. I have to read my text again unless you remember it.
No, I'm gonna fucking no. You know what? Pull up your text, Kyle. We're doing this. I want you to fucking say it. I want you to.
Steve, you might have to edit out some dead air here for a second.
Oh, we can.
I'm not gonna do that.
While we're doing this, no,
it's gonna be lots of dead air.
Sean, how you doing? Good. How are you doing on time?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I called out of work tonight.
Oh yeah, because you were right. Sorry.
Anti-work.
Yeah, our anti-work normalize not showing up to work.
Normalize Beatles podcasting and work.
I will say on Michael Lindsay Hogg, I found him pretty annoying the first time. The second time, not as much. The third so far. I think what I've gotten on about is he's not wrong to have this whole like he needs to have a plan about what the fuck they're doing if they're gonna do a fucking Libyan.
He was really into
desert.
the guerrilla filmmaking aspect of this. Like he was dead certain that this was going to that just throwing shit at the wall and letting it stick was the way to go. And it took him like 50 fucking years for them to make this fucking movie. So I don't think it worked. I don't think the plan worked.
Well, I mean, the Paul that was the. I feel like Paul's like, yeah, we might do it, we might not. Who knows? We might do it here. We may not do it here. Like, pick a plan, guys. Just go with it.
They got a memorable product out of it. I mean, they got a movie out of it. And I was looking at
They got 2 movies out of it.
2 movies out of it. They got, and I was looking at like, when they're doing the rooftop concert, which is like absurd to do back then. I was like, oh, you know what? He did it. He fucking directed. Everyone showed up and like
some of those takes end up on Let It Be.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, he filmed the thing, and they had something to show for it afterwards, and it was like professionally done, and he had like a real crew, and he like had the whole thing organized. I mean, I don't know how much of that was the producers and stuff and everything, the PAs, but I mean, an assistant director, but like he fucking seems like he did his job, like for all it's worth. I'm sounding like a Michael Lindsay Hogg apologist a little bit.
He gets a lot of heat for the edit of Let It Be, where it makes it look like he's breaking up the band, or he looks like a. For him, it's probably more of an interesting situation to watch them falling apart than
I honestly
for the drama of it all. But
when I saw Let It Be, I didn't get the impression that it was all like them fighting and stuff. The only 2 things you really see that are indicative of that are the George and Paul, like, I'll play whatever you want dialogue, and then there's a part where George is playing I Me Mine, and John and Yoko are waltzing along to it because John doesn't like the song and doesn't care to learn it, and you could tell George is kind of pissed. Like, other than those 2 instances, I don't think their breakup is quite. I think a lot of that's sensationalized and like amplified by like the press around it, because a lot of their internal issues were also publicized. That kind of touch on that in the movie, or like they'll be jamming over Paul reciting some like fluff piece about. Like, oh, the Beatles are about to break up,
it's more of a slandered piece than anything.
Kyle,
that was
the opposite of a puff piece.
I can't believe they printed that. I was like,
hey, look, I'm doing court today.
They're just like, the Beatles used to be married, and then they went to India and started
everything
doing
was rosy in the garden. She the nudie.
Now they're a bunch of what they call them like weirdies or like weirdlings or something like that.
I like the whole like I don't blame Ringo because he's never had anything towards the bizarre.
Yeah, it's like what the fuck? I'm like, Ringo's in 200 motels, dude. Like Ringo's weird.
That wasn't yet. Yeah, it was like, give a year or 2.
Yeah, he wasn't in that yet, but that's true.
He was about to be.
Kyle.
He's like the weird, quiet one. That's the scariest kind of guy.
But it's funny because Linda says he's the guy I feel most comfortable around.
Yeah.
Right. But Kyle, did you find your fan fiction yet? Because I have it in front of me.
The only thing I've found is I sent you a text saying, what if he really wanted to shoot the concert in Egypt to impress Orson Welles?
Oh my God.
I sound like Jesus Christ. It's like a fucking hidden subplot about a son trying to impress his neglectful father would like add like depth to this documentary that I was not expecting.
I'm telling you, there's a jukebox musical in there somewhere. Just thinking about Michael Lindsay Hogg trying to reconnect with Orson Welles, like make all these Beatles songs, like repurpose them to be about him.
Which, like, reconnecting with Orson Welles in the 70s would probably have been like the most horrible thing you could possibly ever try to do.
Yeah, he would have been like, I can't reconnect with you right now. I'm supposed to be in this movie called Dune. I don't know what it's about.
Oh my God.
Oh, is this the Jodorowsky reference?
Is he in Jodorowsky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Orson Welles was supposed to play
Aaron.
Yeah. Oh, that actually would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that was perfect. Like,
literally perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
One more thing about Lindsay Hogg, or unless y'all have more, have you guys heard of his made-for-TV movie called Two of Us?
No.
Nah.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I saw this movie a few years ago. It was on YouTube. It might have been taken down, but it's one of those things that's out of print. So I have no problem endorsing the piracy of that. It's interesting. It's about like it takes like there's a weekend in 1975 where Paul and John were hanging out at John's house watching Saturday Night Live, and Lorne Michaels comes on Saturday Night Live, and as a joke, he's like, "Hey, we'll offer the Beatles $3,000 to reunite and play a song on Saturday Night Live." The joke being that they had been offered like millions and like hundreds of millions at that point, and like the story goes, like this really happened. Like John and Paul were like watching it, and they were like, "Oh, what if we did that?" And then they're like, let's just not. Like, just decided, fuck it. Because it was right across the street from where John lived at the time. And so what this movie does is it's pure speculative fiction. Like, there's like a thing that comes up at the beginning, says like, none of this happened. This is just like a what if story. Like, what was that interaction like? Like, what was that like visit like? And it's interesting. Like, it's basically like exploring the relationship of Paul and John at that time. I mean, there's no record of that, so there's no way they can be accurate with like what the dialogue would have been. But like some of the dialogue is like I recognized it as taken from interviews. Like there's this part where like, because like Paul just drops in at one point and John says like, "Hey Paul, like this isn't Liverpool. You can't just. I'm trying to raise a kid now. You can't just like drop in whenever you want." And like he actually did say that in an interview. So there's stuff like that.
Shit!
It's an interesting movie.
I'm actually trying this time.
Yeah, like it's an interesting movie. Like knowing. Yeah, it's poor Julian. But I have a story about Julian too, if I remember it.
Sorry, quick introduction. I looked up the two of us, and I just want to say that the poster is really cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very of its time. Like
there's a lot of
2000s made.
There hasn't really been any movie that like really hasn't really any real actors that recreate the Beatles that well. It always comes off.
Somewhat
really...
disagree. There was a good John Lennon made for TV movie a couple of years, like about their like Hamburg days.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
In his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What was the one that got the theatrical release? I went and saw that one. It was like fucking
Nowhere Boy.
Yeah, Nowhere Boy. I saw that one.
I have problems with Nowhere Boy. We can talk about Beatle biopics now if y'all want.
Yeah,
I have opinions on those.
So many.
You know, I have to go back and rewatch. It's weird. You know, I thought I might be sick of the Beatles after this, but I actually kind of want to go back and rewatch the entire oeuvre of like Beatles movies, because I think the last time I saw Hard Day's Night I was like 12 or something like that. Yeah, I think I remember Help more than Hard Day's Night.
Yeah, same.
I remember Yellow Submarine. I think Yellow Submarine I've seen more recently.
Yeah, I've rewatched both recently, mainly because Hard Day's Night is on HBO Max.
Oh, okay.
So I have it on my list. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, and then Help I have on Apple TV, so I'm just like, yeah, I'll watch Help.
No, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, those two are great. Yellow Submarine. It's so funny because we have a third Beatles movie. I'm like, what happened to Yellow Submarine?
Dude, and yeah, Magical Mystery Tour.
They did not give a flying shit about Yellow Submarine. They were totally disengaged from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, George Martin like did all the fucking music, and they just did the other half of the fucking album was like singles they were already planning on putting out anyway, or had put out.
It
was all outtakes.
It was a bunch of George. It was all the George Harrison rejects from Sgt. Pepper, and I'm like, why are these rejects? These are fantastic songs.
Yeah, All Too Much is one of his best songs.
Yeah,
I think.
it's so good, and that kind of leads me into my rant against Bill Simmons and his horrible like shit take on George Harrison being like, wow, they're just like. He's just lucky to be there kind of vibes, and he's the Paul and John are serious. They're clearly geniuses, and he's just trying to, you know, he can't even light a candle. These guys, I'm just like, where are you from, pal? Like, you know, stick to sports. Bill Simmons, stick to sports.
That is such
a dribble. Bill Simmons.
Yeah,
shut up and dribble.
You
Bill
try
Simmons.
Writing a song as good as All Things Must Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, the funny. Oh my God! Speaking of George's songwriting, one of the funniest fucking moments, unintentionally funniest moments in Get Back was when, like, okay, the whole time, like, Paul's shooting down George's ideas or like giving him a hard time on how he's playing, And then George brings in part 3. I was not ready for this. George brings in Old Brown Shoe. And Old Brown Shoe is like the most jaunty, like silly, like hokey dokey song George has ever written. And Paul's like, it's great. Why didn't you bring this in earlier? It's like it sounds like one of Paul's like fucking, honky
it's like joke songs that he writes in like
one of his granny songs, as John would say.
Yeah, it sounds like one of Paul's like fucking grandpa music like songs, and like
Paul gets that leeway to. I actually like Old Brown Shoe. I like the chords. Like Billy's teaching him the chords. This is what's the kind of dissonant shit. That weird. But like the thing about the Paul McCartney George Harrison thing, like the Paul like George, and I think you all know this because I've told it, you all. I think you're in agreement. But like just to understand the concept of like George having to have good enough shit to get on the album in the first place. A lot of times George Martin and Paul would like, we just gave him one. We just let it wasn't great, but it was like we just gave him a song, and I think Martin goes on to say, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I was far more supportive than I was. And but like all those songs have to be really freaking good to make the roster, make the album. So Paul can afford a throwaway tune, like 2 or 3 per album, maybe 4 or 5 if you count the White Album, and like you can get like, but all of George's stuff is like all killer, no filler.
I think part of him like having to like not being allowed as many songs was their publishing deal. I think part of their publishing deal was like Lennon and McCartney need to have X amount of songs on each album.
Well, didn't George have his own thing? His was Harris songs, and the two of them
had
Northern songs.
I think he started his own publishing company with the White Album because their deal with Northern Songs had ended, and he was like, I'm sick of... Because under Northern Songs, John and Paul owned a share of his songs, and he didn't, because John and Paul owned the publishing company, and Ringo and George didn't. So if George wrote a song and it was published under Northern Songs, then John and Paul got a piece of that, which he wasn't understandably not happy with.
Yeah.
It was probably a deal that made sense when he wasn't writing, but then he started writing, and that was one of many reasons. Also, I have to say, while we're simping for George here, people talk shit about like Paul, like kind of being addicted to George. I have to say, like, there was like 1 or 2 instances where John is just like mad talking shit about George's like songs, like to his face. Like there's one part where he's talking about like he's talking about like, oh man, I've been hanging out with Eric Clapton. Like he's such a good guitar player. I want to play more music like that. And John's just like, I don't know. It sounds kind of like jazz to me. He's like, no man, it's really cool. Like just be able to play like for that long, like for that good. He's like, nah, it's just jazz. I fucking hate jazz. We're not playing that shit on the Beatles album.
Yeah. The other thing though was like at the very end, George has the idea like we should stay at the Beatles should stick together, but we should all just have our own solo albums to get out. And John's far more supportive of that. He's like, yeah, totally. We should just
like, good idea.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I want to hear how they sound like all my songs next to each other,
Yeah.
And he's like, that's a great idea. I'm gonna go do fucking Plastic Ono Band in a few months.
Right.
And that's a good idea. I'm gonna steal it. But yeah, it's kind of that's where kind of what Sean said, like, oh, it's really interesting even if you're just like having been in a band, because I've always found that I always really like, contrary to how some other people might feel, I've always really liked being in bands. Even if it's my project, I like being in bands with people who are in other bands, because I'm like, fuck man, I don't have enough material to like keep these people interested this whole fucking time. Like I don't have enough fucking, I can't, I can't take that kind of pressure. Like please go do something else in the meantime while I'm waiting for me to do shit. So I think it's like that would have been probably the healthiest thing they could have done, and arguably could have saved the Beatles, but
I think if Alan Klein didn't get in the way, that was a possibility. If they found the right manager, they could. And if it wasn't like, the problem was you have like Alan Klein, who's a fucking like hustler con man, and you have like Lee Eastman, who's clearly Paul's daddy-in-law, father-in-law. Yeah. So like you can't, like the two options weren't good, and that's the only two they can muster for whatever reason. And of course,
also this is like the entire setup for this is like just such a shitty way to make a fucking album. It's like they're like, oh yeah, we just want to make this like a more intimate, just sort of a more intimate, stripped down album. And then what do? They hire 100-man fucking film crew, and like they just stick a camera up their ass.
I don't think
like
the album was
like
not
while they're all like. I think if they had just maybe if they had just actually just made a really fucking chill stripped down album and didn't just like make it this huge fucking production, it probably wouldn't have driven him over the edge so much.
Paul makes a reference to that when he's talking about I think to Billy Preston. He goes, "This was going to be a TV show of the the Beatles, the White Album. They were going to play songs for the White Album for a TV show, but because we get ahead of ourselves, we decided to say, fuck all that. Let's just make new songs and make a new thing, and then make a new project that's unique and new to it." Like I don't see the idea, like, because they had a film, like basically these guys are doing what Lost Beat 6 is trying to do. We're trying to do 5 different things at once. And we're trying to get one of them right. Where it's like, okay, there's a film department, there's an electronics department, there's a studio, there's a label, there's a publishing company on top, there's a whole bunch of stuff, like, and they had a film guy, Dennis O'Dell, who was actually the producer of Hard Day's Night and Help, and he did that's what the whole Magic Christian shit was all about. It's like, there's a new movie coming, and we bought this space. We bought this, we booked all this space to Twickenham to do all this film shooting. Why don't we just use this for now? We do this build up, and then we can do the whole thing. And so it seemed like it was the TV show is a good idea, but it was also like it ended up being an album because that's what they were good at doing.
Yeah,
Paul's
also just a bad space too, like a bad environment. Like it all like came together once they moved to the smaller studio, I think, because like they were so used to being in like a more like acoustically like better space.
Just a slightly warmer, just like it's not a cold drafty building where you can go off, and everybody went off into each other's corners and like started talking amongst themselves, in different spaces of that giant building.
Yeah, and on top of that, like at Twickenham, like they're on a fucking crunch because Peter Sellers is gonna come in like a week and fucking film like the '60s version of Squid Game with Ringo. Like, it's not conducive to like, okay, we got this like shitty.
It's like, I'm sure all the. It's like, in addition to like all the fucking film crew, it's like there for them. It's like there's an entirely separate film crew for the Magic Christian that's just building the fucking sets and shit like around them and like testing out lighting and shit. It's just fucking horrible. It's just I can't even believe they're like, yeah, this will be fine.
Was Peter Sellers, by the way, I don't know if you guys like. I had a hard time picking up like irony at certain points. Clearly, was Peter Sellers, because he knew obviously Ringo, he knew the Beatles because he like interviewed them on shows before and met them before. Was he like legitimately like creeped out or like weirded out by that conversation that he dropped into, or is he just like being was he playing like the straight man?
That was so fucking uncomfortable. That was so weird.
I think he just didn't know like he was just being socially awkward.
Also, John is going so hard. That's like one of the best John moments of the entire
John
movie.
Was like at like
going on with the Boy Scouts. And we were talking about the space between us, just like all these different on the all the Beatles like lyric references, and then just starts going off on the Boy Scouts. Oh, they wear shorts.
Was this the same moment? Because they were sitting in the same spot. Was it the same moment where they're looking at like their fucking like sheet music publishing? And
no, that was the.
Hey, you excited, Ringo? You excited to see what you're making 2% of right now?
No, not really.
Oh yeah.
That was interesting because I think what they were alluding to there was like their publisher was. I don't know if he had already done it or he was getting ready to do it, but like that guy, I think it was it Dick James?
Dick James, yeah.
Yeah, like he sold all their music to ATV, and to this day, like that's why Paul and John's estate don't own their own music. Not that they're impoverished or anything.
I was reading the Bob Spitz book. That was kind of like that was sort of like when Brian Epstein sold their stool. It kind of basically put them in a really shit publishing deal that would kick them in the ass much later down the road, where Dick James had more control than anything else. Which is why they're joking about like who gets the kids? Dick James.
Yeah, and I love Paul in that exchange with Dick James because you could tell like he's looking at the deal he just made and he's just like, what the fuck is this? Like
Carolina Moon. Sorry,
he was a real businessman, started his own company, and he's like, oh shit, I don't know how to do this. My dad's a fucking dock worker. I've never fucking seen a contract in my life.
Yeah, they kind of got shafted.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah,
and
I mean, like if Mike House said they're fine, but you know,
I mean, yeah,
Paul McCartney's a billionaire.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like the houses they bought seems like, in the Rolls Royce and the Mini Coopers and all the other fun stuff. I think they were able to, do okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, but the you could see, and this is it's such an interesting thing with like where the business how the business informs the history or the musical narrative, because we don't talk about the Alan Klein stuff. There's a whole Alan Klein. He's like the phantom, like looming over the entire production.
Yeah,
just like waiting for him. Like he's this ghost. He's like he's this sort of like what do they call him? Like just the ghost
Spectre.
haunting specter. He's the specter haunting the entire session. And of course, Paul's just like, and that's where everything broke. But the thing is that's the same guy who like shafted the Stones.
Like, hadn't he just done that too? Like,
he was about to. I think he was about to, because that was January '69. I think by Altamont was still 12 months away.
Yeah,
or just 11 months away.
I think it was early. Like at that point, like Mick Jagger was already telling Paul, like, "Don't do it, buddy. He's no good."
Yeah. I mean, but you don't get that. You don't get Exile on Main Street and like those other like some of those situations like that. But I think Paul stuck with the Eastman situation, which is, like I said, there should have been some sort of middle ground where they could have like said, not this guy, not that guy.
I was gonna say, like, there isn't like a third like lawyer you can hire. Like these are the only two people in the business. Like.
Yeah,
like I know that needs to be built on trust or whatever, but like you're the Beatles, like you could find someone.
And that could just go back to the fact they were just like, John is sort of, and I think John's a character who's, I think I said this about Trump a while back, where it's like, I believe he believes that when he believes it. Like it's sort of like he's really completely, he's never lying to you, but he's not like necessarily telling you the truth either. If that makes any sense. So like when he's talking about like, like the whole is like, he's just a giddy school kid about this Alan Klein deal. Yeah, he's going to represent me and this and that, and of course Glenn Johnson's going like, yeah, I don't know, man, because I had dinner with him once and he's a shady dude. Like, like I
heard, I was looking.
Glenn worked with the Stones.
Like, yeah. Like I think John's fascination with Alan Klein was he didn't like the stereotypical like businessman, like a guy in a suit type of guy. And like Alan Klein kind of like the way he got in with people was he presented himself as kind of an anti-establishment. Like, I'm like one of you, like
I wear a
turtleneck. Yeah.
We were in that music industry class. He said you can curse, but only a little bit.
Wait, what?
Kerry Christensen, our professor, and he was like, he was like, yeah, when you're like in business deals, like you can curse, but only a little bit, because then like people get like it's more casual, but like like don't do that all the time though.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
Damn, I must have missed that lesson.
Yeah, it was.
Damn, Kerry, why you gotta do me dirty?
Yeah, Kyle's like, I swear like crazy when I do my business deals.
He gets so much business, is why he's so good. Fucking master.
I get the motherfucking business.
Yeah, I stick my contracts in people's faces. I'm like, fucking sign this, you cracker.
Fuck you. Put your dumbass signature on the paper, you piece of shit. Kyle Duncan legal.
Did anyone else watch this and try to besides the obvious funny comedic answer of all the time? Did anyone else try to figure out when each Beatle was on drugs and which one they were on? Ringo is either really quiet or he's fucking wasted this entire time.
I felt that way about George a lot. Like I felt like George. I mean, I think George was probably just smoking a lot of weed. Like he wasn't like a.
There's one scene where they definitely have a film canister full of weed.
I don't.
That where John just whips it out. But John, there's like a weed thing. But like George didn't get on coke until later. You said.
Yeah.
Ringo was like an alcoholic, but was it a start then, or what was that?
Probably. It's just like casual drinking.
John was doing heroin though.
Yeah, this was around the time he was. I think that's why he was kind of being unproductive too. Like just talking about how he didn't have that many songs written because he and Yoko would go home pretty much and shoot up.
Jesus Christ!
I think also when it happens and he goes, and of course he's like, there's that scene where it's like, I was getting stoned and high, and I was just shooting up and watching TV all night, and Paul's just like, oh my god, and then he goes on that whole fucking bender of like, just crazy stories, but I think
heroin continues to be like the most unappealing drug of all time.
Yes.
Fascinated by heroin, but for this reason, I'll make this quick because I don't want to do another like other musician diatribe.
Sure.
But, like I look at like fucking Charlie Parker and like Miles Davis and shit. I'm like, how do these fucking people put out so many albums while being heroin addicts? Like I know they played a bunch of
standards. Man. Maybe it was just
they...
different in the 50s, man. Like maybe the heroin just hit different.
Yeah, it might be because I know like that. I thought the whole point of that was to
brains yet.
Yeah, because I thought it was more of an opioid to keep you going, not necessarily to lay you, wind you down.
I don't.
Yeah, it just fucking zombifies you.
Yeah, maybe it sort of it dulls this. Isn't it dull the senses? You just keep practicing and practicing and practicing.
It's like a morphine, the family of morphine, like painkiller.
Right.
Chills the fuck out. It's like an anodyne, and it's like, and the fucking like, I'm just like, damn, how do these fucking heroin addicts get so much done? Was it just there's no internet to distract you? Like what was it? Like
well, there you have it. After there's a whole podcast right there, the Lost Beat 6 heroin review. That's going to be.
We should do it. You know what? For like when springtime rolls around, we'll do the what do you call it? Sweet 16, like a NCAA tourney bracket, and we'll have all our favorite junkie musicians lined up. We'll have like Lou Reed, Charlie Parker, Ginger Baker, Jimmy Page, and then we'll have like Eric Clapton, John Lennon, Keith Richards, I don't know if Graham Parsons is used, but like, it's amazing the list that you see here. Like, and it's interesting, and probably why like John was such a fucking ornery character towards the end of the Beatles was probably when he was getting off the heroin. Because it's just like he's like such a. There's Glenn John has stuff in his memoir where it's just being a total dick to him for no reason. It's like
I think he could be kind of like that though. Like he's the type of guy who would just like insult you, like just to see what your reaction was. Like, I think probably the worst John Lennon story I heard was in the early 60s. They were at some event that Judy Garland was at, and she had like just tried to kill herself, and like she had like a trigger warning for anyone who cares about that. So she had like scars on her wrists or something, and like she was like getting up in front of people, getting ready to sing. Just here in the back, John Lennon shouts, "Show us your wrists!"
Oh my god!
Oh, dear
Christ, man. Hey.
Yeah.
That's the funniest story I've heard.
Yeah, I think he could just do that sometimes. He would like do that type of thing for attention, or like he just wanted to like test the boundaries or whatever. Probably the result of like his childhood or whatever, like having an absentee father or something, whatever.
I think just becoming famous when you're like 14 just
well, he was like that before he was famous though.
Yeah, he was an aggressive kid.
You have you hit a point where it's like you got no life experience, and then you just kind of like level out at that point where you just get more money than God, and you never have to you never have to go through any like debilitating personal crises that like levels you out.
I was gonna say like the actually I'm glad you brought that up, Sean, because I was gonna ask how you all felt about that. It's like as I was watching this, I'm like, damn, I know it's conjecture kind of, but I was like, becoming famous really like fucking. I'm trying to say this in a more like focused way. I don't want to just say it fucks with your brain, but like it really, I guess, messes with your perspective.
It's too much power for one person.
especially
Yeah,
that
I mean,
young.
it's just-
Like,
I mean, it's you give like a 14-year-old the kind of like wealth and power of like an 80-year-old billionaire, you know, and it's like it automatically turns you into an unrelatable lizard alien.
yeah,
You know, it's like how it's like you automatically become completely unrelatable to like 90% of the planet. You know,
I
like,
was I was thinking about this as well, and even on like I was thinking more on a creative level than a financial or influence level, where it seems like, you know, if you kind of had a stable, steady course. I was thinking about this because I was doing a lot of Grateful Dead reading, and they were kind of doing whatever the hell they wanted, and until like they became big enough where it really started to get too big when they had like the '80s big blow up, and they were just like the huge, you know, they're doing all the stadiums. But for me, that's my least interesting time period for them creatively. And I listened, so I'd watch like they seem to be able to do mostly whatever they wanted, but they kind of just were like just trotting along, doing their thing, you know, paying for stuff, but they didn't, you know, it seems like, and I've also been reading the mastery book that you were recommending, Sean.
oh yeah,
Where it's like,
that's a good ass book.
he really seems to be very anti like get rich quick, you know, like where it's just like you'll be a much more happier, content person if you just keep trotting along and just like understanding there's no real like goal to reach. You're just trying to like always just get better a little bit each time with the very
it's about maintaining the practice.
Yeah,
you know, and it's about maintaining the practice and not about like taking shortcuts.
Yeah, so I mean, look at the Beatles So who knows? And that could be the drug issue too, where I'm just like, that seems a lot, you know.
I had a question that I feel like one of you guys knows. Because they always complained about like not getting. I mean, all bands in the '60s got fucking screwed over, obviously. But like, at what point did the Beatles really have like money? Because like I remember in the '60s they were like, we fucking get paid like shit, even though we're the Beatles. So at what point did that change?
Well, it's hard to say because they bought all their cool houses in like '65, '66.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it blew up. It was pretty much right away. Like, I mean, it definitely increased as they went along, but I think it was Hard Day's Night was when they became, like, by that point they were the cultural influence that they were.
At that point, they could also negotiate what they were doing a little bit better. I think, as far as
probably when by the time they played Ed Sullivan was when they were like, okay, they're the Beatles now. Like, everyone who speaks English knows who they are. Like, that level of fame, you know.
I will say, I think I have to be careful about this book because I was reading the Bob Spitz biography, and I had to stop reading it I might finish it up again, but like I stopped reading because I read ahead into the Let It Be sessions, and it was just like so anti-Yoko. It was ridiculous. It's like, this is not what the footage is telling me, what you're saying. So I realized, I look back,
the most polite person out of that entire fucking crowd. She was like hanging around like reading newspapers the entire time.
Yeah,
like, literally just minding her own damn business.
Now,
she did the entire time. I saw her like in the background, like doing her fucking taxes or whatever, or like doing Sudoku or something. Like, quiet conversation with Linda, like off to the side. And when she was doing her like yowly shit, they were all fucking around anyway, and they probably invited her to jam with them. So like,
as soon as like the whole band got there, they're like, all right, cool, it's work time now.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, it's like, yeah.
Now,
I'm glad they like.
Well, and then it's crazy because like Paul does the thing where he's like, this is so stupid. He's like, I know in like 50 years from now, everyone's gonna be like, oh, Yoko broke up the Beatles, and he's like, that's so stupid. And I was like, holy shit, did he call that one?
In 50 years from now, when he was 64, actually 74 or whatever.
To be fair, I'm usually a Yoko apologist, but I should say like a lot of like the tension around Yoko, I think they had already gotten over because it started with the White Album.
Yeah.
Like I think Paul had like aired all of his dirty laundry about that.
Well,
by the time of these sessions, he was like, okay, I need to get over it.
It gets brought up in the meeting too, where it's like, it seems like she just spoke for John the whole time. And it's just like that strange meeting that we don't see at the first time at Ringo's house.
Oh yeah.
And it was like
more of a fucking John problem though.
Yeah.
But that's a really interesting thing because like it's like who is it? I think it's like Linda says something about like at the meeting like Yoko just talked for John or whatever, and I'm like, I wonder almost if that's like they know that like George is like fucking pissed at John or whatever. So it's like maybe she was just trying to like talk to him about John's feelings without him having to talk to John directly. Or it could have just been their weird fucking personal shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I
understand, not to play like armchair psychologist here, but like John Lennon had serious like mom issues. Like his mom fucking died.
Yeah, no shit.
So does Paul's mom passed away too.
Paul's mom also, but yeah. I mean, yeah, everybody handles it differently. But John like his fucking dad was like a deadbeat asshole, and his mom wasn't around, so he didn't have like and Yoko was like an older woman. Also, she was like 36, I think, in this documentary.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, she's a real mommy GF.
Yeah, that was definitely their dynamic.
Get too Freudian about it. I don't want to like. I'm not a fucking psychologist.
She's probably closer to Aunt Mimi's style than Julia's.
I was gonna say I'm not like a fucking psychologist, but like there's clearly like, okay, he's got some kind of thing he's working out. It seems like more of his issue than manipulative. I don't think she's controlling or manipulative. I don't fucking know, but like I don't know. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was just the type of woman he was attracted to. Like he was like into like strong, independent women that like could stand up for themselves when he hit them. Sorry, that was a bad joke. Domestic violence is not funny, kids.
It's true though. Like he's fucking. He was like I mean, yeah. I guess Cynthia was a little bit older than him as well. But I mean, yeah, he's a fucking like twisted dude.
Yeah.
Which always makes it funny every time I hear all the 70s, his whole 70s brand of being like, all the peace and imagine stuff. Like
peace and love.
Peace and love.
Again, armchair psychologist, but that's like fucking like atonement. That's overcompensation.
Sure.
Yeah. The way you are like, okay, I know I'm this terrible, guy in the sense of like as a fucking father or like as a husband or like partner or whatever. Like I need to fucking like.
That was him getting better all the time.
Yeah, I need to like atone like hardcore, like crank the fucking lever the other way and go full speed backwards to fucking, repair mother.
That was him changing his scene and doing the best that he can.
Shut the fuck up.
It's the Beatles lyrics, singing the Beatles songs.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what that's about.
On track.
We're psychoanalyzing John Lennon.
Yeah.
I mean, his lyrics are
better than about the royalty I was about to talk about.
All right.
Yeah, John probably writes the most autobiographical songs of anyone on the squad.
He says his favorite tunes were always the autobiographical ones.
Yeah, like John's lyrics aren't like Bob Dylan, where you could like spend hours being like, "What does this mean?" Like he tells you what it means. Like what he's singing about is what he's singing about. Yeah.
Only want to die.
I don't believe in God.
He wants to do it in the road.
That was Paul.
Is that the
Paul tune? It's a Paul throwaway tune.
Yeah. No, you don't say.
Do you think that song is about the two monkeys that were humping in the India footage?
I actually do, but
they implied that very heavily.
That's the cool thing about that India trip is like it's a lot of cool, like the concept of going there and writing songs like on a retreat. It's like a really cool idea. But the problem is it ends up being like one of the impetuses of the breakup. Like another like if someone's like chiseling, like if Brian Epstein's death is the initial like earthquake that set up the fault or the crack, and then that just is like someone just keeps chiseling away making that wedge, driving the wedge in. That was another one of those situations where India was like Ringo brought a shitload of baked beans and bacon and then just wanted to go home and then left. And then Paul's like, okay, I did my thing. I'm good. Bye. And then like,
it's funny because it's almost like a team building exercise. So it's almost like a fucking like a corporate retreat. Let's all get together. The whole,
the Beatles invented the corporate retreat.
Yeah.
They invented the benefit concert. They invented the rock cruise. They invented MTV.
Oh my God.
They invented the music video.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of inventing things, like I saw, they have like Alan Parsons on the tape and stuff, and like when like they show, I was like, oh, he's there, yeah.
Oh yeah, that was actually like Alan Parsons, right?
Yeah.
Fucking Alan Parsons.
Okay, I was wondering. I was like, oh shit.
And I forgot, and then I was like, oh, Glyn Johns and all this stuff, and I was like, man, I forgot about like how many famous people like were in the Beatles' life, and then I like thought for a second, I was like, I forgot how many people the Beatles made famous.
Yeah, it's the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they were fucking like Nobody's
Because after they broke up, it's all the people going around going like, "Oh, I worked with the Beatles."
Yeah.
your fucking resume. You don't need a resume after that. You're just like, I worked with the Beatles. The end.
Yeah. I think Alan Parsons' deal was I could be wrong. He might have been employed by EMI because I know he
employed
worked
by
with,
EMI.
Yeah, he worked with Pink Floyd too at Abbey Road on Dark Side of the Moon.
He did a lot of him and Jeff Emmerich did a lot of Abbey Road
Kissing
the album.
Alan Parsons and Jeff Emmerich used to kiss each other gently on the lips.
More like Grabby Road.
And then you have like the Ken Scott in the middle, in between like the Magical Mystery Tour White Album years, and he was actually the second. He was the second engineer on a lot of the like Revolver Pepper stuff, and then he ended up doing like All Things Must Pass, and he would do all the Bowie stuff, and then he did all the Supertramp stuff. I mean, he did the Ziggy Stardust stuff, and then he started managing not Brand X. What was that Terry Bozzio band?
I know what you're talking about.
The one with like it's like everyone who was in like 1979 Mothers of Invention.
Was it Little Feat?
No, that's George Lowell.
Oh, okay.
Lowell George, excuse me.
I know who you're talking about.
Oh God, Simple People. No, I can't remember, but it was actually did sound for
Turtles.
Terry. No, it was
that was a joke.
Was it fucking
actually
Missing Persons?
Yeah, Missing Persons. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dale and Terry Bozzio. His wife,
Yeah.
Dale. I think it's Dale. I did sound for Dale.
Dale Bozzio.
Nobody Walks in L.A. But he managed them, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
But yeah, the Beatles made everyone famous and they made everything expensive.
Yes.
Like, this is like just a dork out fact. The fucking Rickenbacker that John used to play, the 325, was like a fucking student model. It was like a short scale, like piece of shit guitar. And people were like, John Lennon plays it. I will pay $4,000 for this. And he was like, oh, fucking Beatles, man. They played it. We got to pay more money.
Yeah, that's why Ludwigs are like the go-to like brand name drums now. It's because Ringo played them.
Yeah.
I find it funny
that
like everybody likes like Voxes are a hot commodity, but I think the Beatles eventually got sick of them and they loved the Fender stuff. But the reason they didn't use the Fender stuff was because that Brian Epstein had a deal. This is like all hinging on Brian Epstein not being around. Like literally, he's not like living for these things to happen. But like, he had a deal where they could only play Voxes on stage, and when Brian died, that deal went void. So they went like Fender swooped in and said, "Here, we'll give you the Bassman, we'll give you the Twins, we'll give you some."
That's how they got the 6-string bass, I think.
The 6-string bass and the Fender Rhodes, all that stuff, because of the, they just just like took over that whole album, and it sounds great. I mean, it's you can't really.
Yeah, if you like George's Rosewood Telly, this is the documentary for you because it's all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of George's guitars, I love that shit where, like, if you're a George fan, like that red Les Paul he has is like one of the great like artifacts of rock history. It's the guitar that Eric Clapton played while My Guitar Gently Weeps on. And there's this part where it just falls the fuck over and like no one's around to grab it.
He found out he was being played by a racist. He was like, "Oh, I was played by a racist."
I was played by a racist. I must commit suicide. No, man. Speaking of, okay, this is just a random fucking thought I had, but I have never fucking had the desire to like smoke cigarettes until I saw Paul McCartney had like a personal fucking lighter guy. I was like, damn, if I had fucking $1 million.
Yeah, dog.
I would smoke just so someone could come light me up.
Fucking cool.
I like how he just saw the cigars, man.
I'm just, I know that movie, dude. Watching this movie made me want to like smoke and drink so fucking bad. Like
I didn't because George Harrison died like 40 years later. So no, watching George Harrison slowly kill himself in 4K did not make me want to smoke.
Smoking did not kill John Lennon, though.
But it also
not yet.
It might have taken 40 years to kill him, but it did make him knife proof for a little bit.
Explain Paul. Paul's still around.
Paul's still around.
Makes him knife proof. Ringo's still around too.
They might have quit sooner than George did.
Paul would say, "Well, I went vegetarian."
But there's like just like seeing like, wow, man, if I had no zero interest in smoking, but if I had a guy who would come light me up whenever I wanted it, I would smoke.
I just like seeing everyone's hot, young, lithe bodies just fumigating themselves with poison. It's kind of awesome. Very cool.
Just kidding. Smoking is bad.
No, smoking is bad for you, but it's very cool.
No, we live in California. We get we get the health cigarettes. That's we legalize them.
Cigarettes?
Yeah, that's what they're called.
We're just vaping.
Yeah, we legalize oregano.
Because chemically vaping is like the same, if not more efficient than smoking. Like it gets you charges just like fucking downloads way more nicotine in your body, but it's way less cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not as cool. Not nearly as cool as having a man light a fucking having like your own personal like cigarette lighter, man.
Didn't Josh Homme say that on the Joe Rogan podcast where he's just like, imagine Jimi Hendrix with a vape? No, you can't.
You're just
imagine like trying to stick like the vape between the guitar strings on the headstock like they did.
Man, we need to make smoking and heroin cool again.
Speaking of smoking, it was fucking great to see Billy Preston like playing with a fucking cigarette in between his fingers.
Yeah, that's fucking old timey fucking jazz man shit.
Yeah, that's fucking cool. Like that this guy is like not even fucking putting a cigarette down. He's like, I can play piano and fucking smoke.
Yeah, he's like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. Yeah, they're just like leaving their fucking cigarettes like all over the top of that fucking like electric piano they got.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this from like, again, like I did a lot.
There's like multiple times. It's like they just set their fucking cigarettes like on top of that thing, and I was just like, oh my god.
That's an antique.
I did a lot of the like, oh god, like then and now kind of things, like with the, like I said, with the electricity and with the fucking like just like logistics and stuff.
The tea and toast.
Oh, yeah, the tea, all they fucking ate was tea and toast. But like and pale ales. But I was just like, God, just fucking watching them smoking indoors, like all this fucking like.
How did they not burn down that fucking studio? Yeah.
Fucking there's like EMI Red in there. There's like expensive shit. There's Neumanns everywhere. There's a Bluthner piano. There's like all this shit is in there, and they're just like smoking and which I mean, smoke damage even without fire just like fucks up the instruments and shit. I'm just like, damn.
Yeah,
how you get that vintage sound.
Yeah. These are antiques now.
Yeah.
It makes it sound warmer.
That cigarette smoke on the vinyl. Yeah, it's a lot warmer.
Just smoking from the fucking tape and everything. I'm like, oh god, like.
Yeah, that's how the Neve console from that fucking Dave Grohl movie got its signature sound. It's like all the cocaine stuck between the
It's a combination of stale urine and cocaine residue.
So the like smoke just caked onto the fucking wires of the consoles.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't see anyone just like pissing on a wall. Like just like I'm surprised they didn't just have like a communal like piss wall.
Hey, I mean, who knows what unreleased footage there still is? You only get 20 minutes out of each 8-hour day.
I mean, that floor was green as shit, man. They could have just been pissing and shitting like all over the floor.
Well, they had a fireplace.
They're literally they're just standing up and dumping ass like straight on the floor. Like they just stand up and drop trow and just fill up the studio ankle deep.
I mean,
yeah, that's why George left.
I mean, Sean, like
you guys shitting all over the place.
John was strung out on heroin, and Paul was like fucking like doing parkour off the walls. Like it's not really that out of like.
That's why Paul was like trying to like get lift himself up to the ceiling with a chain. It was like to get out of the human waste just coating the fucking studio.
It's because he wanted to take a dump from up high, so he would fall on the floor.
It's like, well, it'd be really funny if I took this shit from 50 feet up in the air.
It's like he was playing with the novel and jumping over the chair. He was like, I don't want to touch this shit. I just got these shoes. What do you think is the highest shit anyone's ever taken? Like from like elevation to the floor?
I like the idea of like Paul and
do you count pretty pits
and taking a shit on the floor while like giving George instructions on the song, and George just standing there like, Paul, you do not stand on any grounds of you giving me orders right now.
Yeah, literally just like filling up his pants like while talking to George.
Did you think anyone's ever shit off of K2?
What's that?
You think anyone's ever shit off of K2?
Oh my, yeah, yeah. When you get to the highest mountain in the world, you got to take a piss off the top.
Yeah, or like Mount Everest. I feel like in Mount Everest would like freeze midstream and like you'd have a problem.
Yeah, he's got like fucking dick icicle.
What do you think? I mean,
You're up
bands,
there, like-
bands talk like this all the time. What do you think was the most like fucked up thing the Beatles ever talked about in like a band practice? And this is the '60s in like England, like a white, really white country.
Well,
and
I was
guys with
I
nothing.
mean, they literally just wrote an unironic racist version of Get Back. Like that was the prototype version.
No, it was ironic. That was like
that was the problem. Is you couldn't tell which one it was.
Didn't read. Well, the funny thing is, I actually was thinking about this earlier, and I'm glad I remembered it. Is because they're capable of doing. Okay, well, I don't know if John and Paul are, but George is capable of doing that because Taxman is the successful version of that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, they're like, oh, here's the bad, corrupt politician guy.
Declare the pennies on your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, here's the corrupt politician, and I'm talking from his perspective, and you clearly hate this fucking character. Like, you hate this narrator because, it's like he's just, over the top, and, fucking, he sounds like just a piece of shit. And it's like, okay, that is how you do it. So maybe they should have let George have more songs. Because
Yes.
You know what the shit was that they probably talked about? Probably just like Paul, like talking about wanting to fuck his mom all the time.
Oh God! Well, did you show Kyle it, or did Kyle show you that?
Where was that interview from? Where he's just like, "Yeah, it was, I saw me mom and I popped a boner."
Was this in a dream?
think-
Because his mom died when he was like 14.
I mean,
this would have been before
That's
he was
old enough.
14. Like there's an interview where he talked about like I think this was in the 90s. He said this like he was talking about how I think he saw his mom in his underwear once, and he was like, "Hey, way to go, mom!" Like I don't know what
right.
he was like his logic was, but it was kind of funny. He just out of context.
Well, I know
He saw the
was-
mortician undressing her, and he just like popped a boner. He was like,
No,
"Oh, my mom's hot.
Shut
No,
up.
I'll never."
Too soon,
No,
Sean.
stop this. I will say I know that Paul was on Howard Stern like a few years ago, and there was like a whole thing about like, oh yeah, John and I used to masturbate with each other or together, like we watch each other jerk
I remember
off.
that. I remember
Oh,
Ryan
yeah.
told me that
Support each
story.
other's bodies.
Just like okay, it was just
I have
like
to
it was
say,
the two guys in a hot tub from South Park. Like, oh, okay, you go first.
Yeah, I remember Ryan told me that story, and like he was telling me this, like, yeah, John and Paul used to masturbate in front of each other, and I was like, that's such bullshit. He did not. And then he was like, yeah, and then like they would start out calling out like famous like actresses' names that they were allegedly like thinking about, and then John just blurted out Winston Churchill, and then that's when I knew like, okay, that's absolutely 100% real. That is absolutely a joke John Lennon would make.
Yeah,
Just kept screaming, "Oh, Paul's mom!"
Kyle, what does it feel like to have like Ryan only tell you half of like half truths all the time? So you never know if he's lying to you or not.
Oh yeah, that I've like Groucho Marxed myself, where like people, like the story, like how I don't know if it's true or not, but like people like Groucho Marx apparently like come up and be like, "You're Groucho Marx, I love your movies and shit." And he's like, "Yeah, cool, thanks. Like I'd actually rather be left alone right now." And they're like, "Oh, he's doing the thing, like he's doing his deadpan comedy." He's like, "I'm not joking, I'm being serious. Like please leave me alone." And like no one, like he just like cursed himself, like no one will ever believe that he's just being himself.
Curse of the clown.
Yeah, Curse of the Clown, like just like I don't know if Andy Kaufman had ever dealt with that. He probably did, but like I somewhat.
Well, Andy Kaufman actually was joking all the time, so I think
Yeah,
maybe that's not such a.
he completely incinerated himself for the sake of comedy.
He really did.
like that guy could turn up like alive tomorrow, and I would not be surprised.
Yeah, that would actually be less shocking than. That's why he doesn't. He's not. That's why he's never gonna do it because he's like they're gonna expect that. He's like they're gonna fucking. No, what he's gonna do is he's just gonna like actually die and just let his fucking obituary pop up and like just like let it float out there and see if anyone catches
Oh
it.
my god! Just the real Andy Kaufman obituary pops up.
Like, oh yeah, by the way, he actually died this time, like the end. But
That would actually be hilarious because that just means that Jim Carrey is like literally like an insane person for like his whole "I'm channeling Andy Kaufman" bit.
That was one of the funniest, crazy documentaries I've ever seen about. Have you seen that one where he talks?
Yeah, it's that shit is literally insane.
The part where he got whoever played God, I forgot the what was the alter ego? The I gotta be me, that dude.
Oh yeah, when he like fucking shows up to the party, like he hires what's his name, Andy Kaufman's buddy, like
to go
shows
to the
up as
Playboy
that
Mansion.
character.
They all think it's Jim
Yeah,
Carrey.
yeah, and then Jim Carrey just shows up as himself.
He's like, and like, I just was at In-N-Out Burger, grabbed some double doubles and milkshakes, and Hugh Hefner just called me. Why am I acting so like I was? This show's so good,
Absolute legend.
Yeah, highlight. It was great.
But,
Okay, we've talked for 2+ hours on.
We need to talk for 3 so we match the documentary.
Okay.
So in conclusion, bad documentary. Don't watch it.
Don't watch it. Sucks. Bunch of guys fucking playing boogie woogie songs. Fucking blows.
Yeah, bad.
Yeah.
Let's see it. No, it's good though. I recommend. It's like I feel like it's. I mean, this is the guys, man. This is like the definitive documentary about the band.
Except for the anthology.
Yeah, except for the anthology, but
Which,
I mean,
which is like they're that's
This is the new thing. This is the new.
This is the new thing. This is like, yeah, this is pretty important. So if you're a musician and you're
this is not just a piece of content. And fuck anybody who calls us. Fuck anybody who says content. Bill.
No, this is rad. This is a pretty like rad.
This is like the closest I think we'll ever get to a Beatles reunion. Really, because like this is like a light that like they haven't been shown in before, and it really is like a time machine. Like it looks like it could have been filmed yesterday.
I still want to throw a lot of love to the anthology because that actually was whatever they can muster out of a reunion. But the I want to do also make a point. These are two separate things. This is like if we want to look at like the two histories of the group, you know, like there's like the narrative autobiography, the anthology is there, but it's also like 3 to 4 different opinions of different times 30 years later reflecting on that. This is one of those, this is a time capsule, time machine where you're like, no, this didn't happen, this happened, this didn't happen. So, you know, like the way memory warps over time can distort things. So what George remembers being George's like, I brought in Billy Preston to save the band, and like, no, he didn't. He just showed up. You know, like, those sort of things.
I think they didn't show it on camera. He actually did call him over and like, hey, I know you're in town. Can you swing by the studio real
That's
quick?
probably true. I mean, he just said hi, of course, but like, I mean, there's mixed, you know, things on the narrative, but this is like. I'm going to get into a little Dan Carlin thing but there's like 2 different, you know, there's the history of like looking into the footage that you can do. And then you have to base everything else that's not documented visually with like who you have to trust what everybody else says. And they have to trust those facts and then sift the truth out of all these different accounts. So,
yeah.
So this is like one of those opportunities where you get to say, you can sort of make an assessment on what actually happened without having to listen to Bob Spitz or even the Beatles on what actually went down. Yeah. So
it's just
it's great. Very high information density. It's a lot of good shit.
It's I gotta give
the part where Ringo farted.
I've just
Is that in part 3? I don't know if Sean's seen that.
Oh, there's a part where like, you know, Paul's doing this sort of rally. He knows he's on camera. He's like, we always do our best when our backs against the wall, and then Ringo's just like, I farted. And just Paul just walks away.
I have to say before I forget, I want to give. I kind of touched on this, but I think we should give props to Peter Jackson here because he did a real good job. This is a very easy project to get boring real quick. He managed to hold our attention for like 3 2.5+ hour segments.
It was pretty compulsively watchable. I was never, I never faded out. I was never completely tapped out. I was pretty riveted.
I can't wait for the director's cut.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm excited for the fucking 20-hour Blu-ray.
It's like we're gonna release all 60 hours, and we're just gonna.
I'd fucking watch it, man. I'd fucking do it.
We're gonna instantly download it into your brain from the blockchain, so you don't have to fucking sit and watch it for 60 hours. You just instantly.
Even better. Yeah.
Peter Jackson is now responsible for 2 of my favorite trilogies of all time:
The Hobbit and then the Get Back.
Why did you go to The Hobbit? Why would that ever be anyone's go-to choice for favorite trilogy of all time?
He had a 2/3 chance of being right.
Yeah.
Do you though?
Kyle's 2 favorite movies of all time: Meet the Feebles and then Get Back.
What did you think of Andy Serkis's performance as Michael Lindsay Hogg CGI'd?
I mean, he's amazing. They gotta stop snubbing him for the Oscar. I think his mocap performance as Michael Lindsay Hogg definitely qualifies for an Academy Award, and I don't care what the Academy says. So
good.
So fuck him.
Actor Cillian Murphy, but even more supporting actor, lead actor Michael Lindsay Hogg, supporting actor as Andy Serkis as Michael Lindsay Hogg. Oscars, everyone. Good movie, show.
Eric Wareheim as
Mal Evans.
Yeah, that guy.
They should have had Tim Heidecker be George Martin.
Yeah.
That would have been so distracting.
Have him be Neil Aspinall, the other roadie.
Yeah.
I like think easy. You could just be like a fucking like executive when you're just like some like manager or like roadie or guy or like
work for LeBron James.
What did LeBron
have all your buddies like become your business partners?
Yeah, I mean,
like I'm not saying they actually got it. They went to school and shit.
The world of basketball, and it'll work out for you.
Yeah, it just so happens they also went to school for it too. But
yeah. Also, that
you have to be certified to do some of that stuff.
I read that Neil Aspinall said that in the early days of Apple, like there wasn't like a single piece of like paperwork like officializing anything. Like they didn't have any like contracts or anything. They were just like, we're Apple.
Steve, see, Steve, you're
what
good.
could possibly go wrong?
It's possible.
But yeah, I mean, good miniseries. I liked it. I thought it was a little more tedious at times than other people did, but I still liked it. I thought it was a good movie. Good old Beatle nerd out time.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to close out this pod here. If you guys want to hang on the line for a minute, we'll close up. But be sure to like and subscribe and download this shit. Give us 5 stars if you actually like it. If you don't like it, don't give us 5 stars.
No, give us 5 stars anyway, even if you don't like it. Fuck you.
Give us a shit review with 5 stars. We'll take it.
Yeah.
And
everyone stay tuned for the Psychedelic Space Beat Band's
Pump of the Judgment's coming out next year. We're going to start working on it.
Remix album.
Don't do any of those things. Go listen to Bill Simmons. He knows he's got great takes. He loves the Beatles. They love Bill Simmons.
He's content king.
He's the content king. The Beatles made great content. He makes great content. Everybody's content.
Tune in next week to hear 4 white privileged guys talk about social issues they're not qualified to talk about.
Oh, I missed it.